TGI Friday. Very shortly, we will be tendering the best and final offers to the city and the arbitrator from our side, and we'll get to see what the city's best and final offers and final proposals being taken to arbitration will be. And we'll go from there. We'll have a 30-day window after that to supply briefs in support of those proposals, and we'll get the city's briefs 30 days from now. So the process continues on. Again, wish this didn't have to come to this point, but here we are, and it'll be concluded sooner rather than later. Let's talk about earlier this week in Judge Gettleman's courtroom for the straw purchaser, Jamel Danzy. I mean, if members and law enforcement supporters in general don't comprehend the importance of elections, especially the ones coming up for City Hall, February 28th, I don't know how else to keep explaining this. To think that there is a maximum sentence of 5 years for a straw purchase at the time that Ella was murdered and Carlos was shot. Now they upped the sentence to 15 years as a maximum. But there is no mandatory minimum on any of that. It is all subjective to the judge with mitigating factors being considered. And Gettleman's decision was based on the fact that Eric Morgan and Danzy had a romantic physical relationship where Eric Morgan was constantly using him. Boo-hoo-hoo. Psychological warfare, trying to get everything he could out of him. Drugs, money, literally telling him to sell his watch to buy him drugs. You name it. Buy him a gun. Buy him bullets. And Mr. Danzy kept doing it, all in the name of love. Like that should matter. Period. What about the love that Elizabeth French had for Ella? That every officer, friend, or family member had for Ella? Doesn't matter. What about the love of CJ and Brenda for Carlos, along with Senior and the rest of the Yanez family and clan, friends and family, and Carlos's life forever being changed? That love doesn't get taken into consideration. This was never about a sentence based on vengeance or retribution or retaliation. It was a sentence that should have been based simply on deterrent, stopping the next asshole from doing this to somebody else. Law enforcement or just a regular citizen, it shouldn't matter. These straw purchases need to stop, and the people doing it need to go and serve hard minimum sentences, at least 5 years minimum. Now it's up. If there's a murder, it absolutely should be a mandatory minimum for a straw purchase of 10 years. Even if it's an accidental death, doesn't matter. The attack on legal rights for gun ownership is so backwards, but that's just where we're at with the political structure currently going on in this city, state, and country. I'm not going to keep ranting about Judge Gettleman's decision. It's water under the bridge and we have to move on, but we certainly need to do more when it comes to legislation and politicians who don't want to listen to common sense. I'm going to give you another example of politicians who don't want to listen to common sense. We currently have 2 female officers stuck in Peru. With the coup and the overthrow of the government and replacement last week, and now the resulting riots and insanity going on with a certain faction trying to get the old guy reinstalled and released from custody, those poor officers are stuck, basically confined to their hotel. The airport has been shut down and closed. There is no flights in or out of Peru. There is literally, you can almost call it rioting. The police are dressed in riot gear. There's rocks, bottles, gunshots, you name it. It's kind of a terrifying situation. In a strange country, stuck. They were due back 3 days ago. The U.S. Embassy in Peru has not called them since Tuesday. The U.S. Embassy in Washington, D.C. referred them to a website with a notification system, and that's it. Nobody is willing to help. We made efforts to reach out to Senator Durbin's office being the number 2 guy in the Senate, right? And being around forever, you would think he'd be pretty concerned about Illinois citizens and law enforcement officers trapped in a country trying to get out and whatever they could do to make that happen. Nope, nothing. Basically, told them just stand pat and let's see where this situation goes for the most part. There's been no movement. There's been no contact. You know, they reached out to the family members with the numbers that we supplied and basically told them the same thing. Given a phone number, contact the senator's office, the law enforcement agency that you work for, and maybe that could help get things moving. I try and call that number. It's a recording. Leave a voicemail. There is no way to talk to a live person. This is the leadership. I guess because they are not professional basketball players, nobody seems to give a damn. And they didn't even commit a crime. But it's pathetic to think that political leaders are literally willing to let things like this just go by the wayside and do nothing. This could have been a slam dunk win for Durbin to get involved and facilitate those 2 officers' return. And we know they're not the only U.S. citizens in Peru right now. I mean, you have one of the wonders of the world there. There clearly was, I'm sure, 100 or more U.S. citizens in the country at any given time when all this insanity broke out. But the U.S. government doesn't seem interested in protecting them or getting them out any way they possibly can. There we are. A couple other house cleaning points. I talked about this earlier. The paternity benefit given to City of Chicago employees starting January 1st does include CPD officers. Human Resources has been giving bad information. You know, Labor Relations has been notified of this. The reality is we get the benefit just like every other city employee does. The difference is the city's position has been it comes out of your medical time. We've said no. So that is going to be taken to arbitration. I can tell you that, unless it gets agreed upon separately. We've told the city it needs to be coded separately from medical time. This is a separate benefit all city employees get. You cannot overlap it with the medical time. So what does that mean? If you're having a child and you are going to take advantage of the paternity leave January 1st and beyond, you notify us. If your timekeeper codes you medical time and not some other code they create for the paternity leave, notify the lodge right away. Timeliness is going to make a difference here. You have those 7 days. Make sure you call the lodge that first week of January if they are burning your medical time for a paternity or even parental leave, whether it's maternity or even adoption, whatever the case may be, so we can file a grievance and challenge that and get it recoded even before the arbitration award. That's mandatory. So we know it's going to affect some officers, but you need to spread the word, be aware of it. Anybody who tells you it does not apply to CPD until arbitration and the contract is done is absolutely incorrect. And I don't care what rank they are. They don't know what they're talking about. Rehires. We've got a lot of officers who tried to dip their toes in other ponds and decided they wanted to come back, and where does that look like? We tendered a proposal to the city on what we thought the rehire program should look like, including lateral transfers. They needed that from us first before the rules for the city HR could be changed, which was a necessity. So we're still waiting to hear back. I expect an answer on that next week on what movement is for the rehires that want to come back to CPD. Lastly, there's a membership meeting Wednesday, and it's a critical one because that's the petition night for next year's elections. If you have been attending the general membership meetings this year and you qualify to be a candidate and you want to run for FOP office, you need to be at the lodge at the 7 o'clock meeting Wednesday at the 21st. So have a good weekend. I'll see a lot of you on Wednesday, I guess. If not, be safe and say a prayer for the officers in Peru. Godspeed.